To find out if you'll enjoy this game, I need to ask you a somewhat personal question. Just how much do you enjoy having your ass kicked? I won't use a number, and today, we're looking at Furi. If nothing else, Furi is a very interesting game. It's a character action bullet hell hybrid that's gameplay consists entirely of boss fights. The character designs are all amazing, likely thanks to Takashi Okazaki of Afro Samurai fame. The soundtrack is all electronic music, which I'll probably be adding to my personal library of music at some point. That's my subtle way of saying it's good. And it's just visually striking to look at any given time. It's entirely brimming with style and personality, which may not mean much on its own, but really, just look at this game. It's gorgeous and it's fucking cool. The story is presented to you entirely through dialogue. You are a badass cyber samurai guy who is escaping from a crazy space prison that requires you to kill each jailer, those bosses if that wasn't clear, in order to escape. You're joined by a guy wearing a furry mask who seems to know a great deal about pretty much all of those jailers. Weird that. As you're walking between each boss fight, he'll give an explanation of who you're about to face, and just offer general commentary as you go. Much of the story is left vague, and it's not so engaging that I would advise anyone to play solely for the story, but the story tidbits were interesting, and if a more story-centric or lore-heavy look at this world was ever taken, I would jump on that shit. Also, when you're walking between each fight, you can only plod along rather slowly. This is a thing so all the dialogue doesn't get skipped, but it sucks to slowly drag your ass back to the right path if you go the wrong way. If you push the dash button, you auto-walk to the next boss fight. I'd advise doing that every single time. Just trust me on that. Perhaps calling Furi a character action game is a bit inaccurate. The abilities at your disposal are actually quite limited, though other aspects of the game's design do share aspects with character action. You have a simple 4-hit combo, a gun that works like a twin-stick shooter and can be charged for a stronger shot, a dodge which can be charged to increase the distance you move from that move, and a parry. If you parry perfectly, you get guaranteed cinematic damage against the boss. You can also charge your slash, which will give you additional damage if it hits, but limits your mobility while charging. Battles are split into range sections. Generally, this is where the bullet hell aspect of the game will come in, and closer duel-like sections where your gun is disabled, and there's a focus on dodging and parrying and opening up an opportunity to get in there and fuck their shit up. It's a rather simple set of mechanics that you can get an understanding of fairly quickly. The real depth of combat comes from the bosses themselves. Each boss is split into multiple phases, and each phase will throw something new at you. They'll have new combinations of physical attacks to parry or dodge, and new bullet patterns in each phase. In theory, despite asking for a large amount of skill on the part of the player, it's somewhat forgiving. You can take multiple hits, and you can partially restore your health by shooting certain bullets or successfully parrying. And you restore your health entirely after every phase of the fight. If the boss knocks your health bar down all the way, that phase of the fight resets and you lose one of your lives. You regain a life if you successfully complete a phase, lose all 3 of your lives, and you have to start the fight over. I loved this game for the first 6 boss fights. For the first 6 boss fights, the difficulty was strict but fair. I felt myself improving on every attempt, and I could see that each hit I took was my fault. I was filled with satisfaction every time I beat a boss, and I was constantly looking forward to what the game would throw at me next. And then I got to the 7th boss, and she kicked my ass. She kicked my ass hard. I hit a wall, and I completely stopped enjoying the experience. The joy turned to rage. I was infuriated. I was stuck for over 4 hours. I only played the game for like 7 hours total. When I finally beat her, I didn't feel a sense of satisfaction. I didn't feel accomplished. I felt like I had gotten lucky. That was all. I felt myself getting stuck on the 8th boss. I couldn't even get past the 2nd phase in 40 minutes. So I took what many may view as the coward's way out. I committed the oh so grievous sin of turning the difficulty down. I know, I'm a monster. I had stopped enjoying the game entirely. There was only anger and yelling and nearly thrown controllers. I felt like the game was demanding near perfection from me, and I wasn't willing to put in enough work to be perfect at it. I'm no stranger to difficult games. Devil May Cry and Bayonetta are among my favorite franchises. I've played my fair share of bullet hells, and I've recently discovered a love for the Souls franchise. If I had beaten my head against the wall for long enough, I'm sure I could have broken through eventually, but I didn't want to. The lower difficulty level is laughably easy. I brute forced my way through the rest of the bosses with no issue, and I felt almost no satisfaction in doing it. There was no way to change the difficulty back, which, to be fair, was told to me fairly explicitly. I only enjoyed 6 out of the 10 bosses. For all intents and purposes, that's 6/10 of the game. I'm not saying that everyone who plays this game will get stuck on the 7th boss, or necessarily get stuck at all. Gamers have highly variable skill levels, often varying on a genre-by-genre or game-by-game basis. I consider myself fairly competent at games in general. If I got stuck, I imagine others will get stuck. And I also imagine there will be those who won't have an issue like this. And if that's you, I hope you enjoy this game. Really, I can see what there is to love. I did love 6/10 of it. But I did get stuck. And I can't in good conscience recommend a game that I spent the majority of my playtime not enjoying. It's as simple as that. I can, however, put forth some ideas that could have improved my experience, and likely the experiences of others who have or will go through the same thing I did. The most obvious solution is another difficulty level, one that doesn't allow you to simply destroy every boss, but also isn't quite as demanding as the current standard difficulty level. An alternative solution would be the removal or optional removal of the live system, or having a cheat or option that gives you infinite lives, or whatever. You get the idea. See, a large amount of my frustration came from being forced to play through sections that I already understood and could consistently clear over and over and over, often spending more than 5 minutes simply getting to the portion of the boss fight that I was stuck on, only to be almost immediately killed 3 times and sent back to the beginning of the fight. It was ultimately just a waste of my time. Had I been given the option to stay on the phase that I was stuck on, perhaps for some penalty, the loss of achievements, or a penalty to the ranks assigned at the end of the game, for example, I definitely would have felt more motivated to power through the sections I felt stuck on, and as a result, I would have likely enjoyed the game in its entirety. As it stands, Furi is a game with a lot of strong points in favor of it that I very much wanted to love, but I just couldn't. If you're still interested, it's something to perhaps consider picking up if it goes on sale on PC. And if you have a PlayStation Plus account and a PS4, it's free for the month of July 2016. That said, this has been I Won't Use a Number. If you like this video, you can subscribe and maybe share it with your friends. Keep loving what you love, and I'll see you next time with something else.